Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining for today's session. I'm especially honored that my guest today is Mr. Anil Sachdev, who is perhaps known to almost all of you who are on this call with me. Anil, welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us. May I first give you a quick introduction to Anil? Inspired by a higher purpose, and thanks to the blessings of mentors and a loving family, the teachings of a great spiritual master, Anil Sachdev has been instrumental in creation of three immensely valuable and valued enterprises: the Aisha Consultancy Services, Grow Talent Company, and now the School of Inspired Leadership, SOIL, all dedicated to making this world a better place. Anil also serves on the global board of Shizenkan University in Japan, the Academy Council of CEDEP in Fontainebleau, France, World Compassion Council, Seattle. He's also an advisor on the board of Schneider Electric and the managing trustee of Chinmaya Mission, beside, of course, the many other hats that Anil wears. So, Anil, really welcome to you. Thank you so much for sparing your time. And I understand that today you have a very special annual awards function at SOIL, and soon after this, you'll be joining over there. So, thank you so much for joining us. Just before we start, a quick few housekeeping rules. Your microphones for all attendees are on mute right now, and but please use the Q&A function. There is that button at the bottom of your screen to pose questions, which Anil and I will take. Do use the chat function also for any comments or any counterpoints that you may have, or even compliments or any feedback on this session. Of course, this session will be eventually available online also, and it would be my pleasure to send you a link for all those who are attending this call today. So thank you very much with this, and Anil, coming back to you. Of course, you've been a guru on HR, on transformation leadership. First, tell me about yourself. Where did this journey for you start? Where did you discover your passion for this thing? Was it just one spark one day? Was it where did it all begin for you?
Yeah. So basically, let me tell you my life's journey. Actually, I was born in the house of an army officer, the fifth child, in a place called Kharki in Pune. And then grew up in Delhi when I was young, because from Pune we went to Chennai and then came to Delhi. And a few things happened when I was a young child. One, India lost the war to China in 1962. And you will never be able to imagine the kind of scenes that I saw at that time. There were these dead bodies of the soldiers coming back wrapped in the tricolors. And because we are from a Fauji family, it had a profound impact on all of us. And then I saw something which is something amazing. We used to live near Pusa Road, and middle class families who didn't have enough for themselves, all the women removing all their jewelry and donating to the army Jawans' families. I mean, it was something quite amazing. I haven't forgotten those scenes that I saw as a child. And the picture of Nehruji used to come, that, very distraught Krishna Menon, the defense minister. And my elder sister was studying in Miranda House, and she was an NCC cadet. And she participated in the Republic Day parade that year. And next day, there was a special function in which she was given the duty of ushering in the guests, and she was standing next to Nehruji and giving him tea, coffee, etc. And that day, Lata Mangeshkar sang that song, "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo," for the first time. And, Nehruji had tears in his eyes. And when my sister came back, we all used to sit together. We were a large family, 6 children with our parents. And at dinner table, when my mother used to serve us and all of us used to sit together, my sister sang that song. So it had a profound impact on all of us, actually. And as a child, I said to myself, when I grow up, I want to do something to remove the tears from our leaders' eyes and to do something to make our country truly a strong power in the right way. Around that time, we also met Swami Chinmayananda, the spiritual teacher. And his presence and his energy and his inspiration was so spectacular in our lives. Every Sunday, my parents used to conduct what is called a Bal Vihar class. And I and my brothers used to attend that. And at the end of the class, we were asked to read a pledge, which went something like this. We stand as one family, bound to each other with love and respect. We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. We live honestly the noble life of sacrifice and service, producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take. We believe that the service of the country is the service of the Lord of Lords, and devotion to the people is the devotion to the Supreme Self. We know our responsibilities, give us the ability and courage to fulfill them. So most of the lines I just remember because there's a part of our growing up, and these were very inspiring lines. And I used to go as a young boy because we moved back to Pune, and in Pune we used to live in a cantonment called Dehu Road. I used to take a train, go to Shivaji Nagar station from Dehu Road, 45 minutes, then walk for 20 minutes, then take a bus, go and listen to Swami Chinmayananda's classes in New English School. And it was something quite spectacular because at that time, listening to Swami Chinmayananda and just seeing the way he would explain what life was all about. I grew up as a teenager listening to those classes. So at the age of 18, Swami Chinmayananda presented his book to me, and he wrote something in the book, which helped me to write my first purpose statement for my own life. And I said, I want to contribute to India's economic development without spiritual impoverishment. And so I did my management studies.
How young were you when you
I was 18, Vimal.
Wow.
I was 18 years old when I wrote that. And this happened soon after the 71 war. In the 71 war, I wrote a play in Hindi and went and called the Film Institute students to come and enact that play in our officers' club in Dehu Road. And we collected 5,000 rupees for the Jawans' families by selling tickets of 5 rupees each. And that whole effort of a few months of work, I was 17 when I did that, was so inspiring. I just understood in my life that doing something worthwhile like this was something quite much more fulfilling than anything else. So, of course, my brother gave up IIT to join NDA. Both my sisters married army officers and so on and so forth. In my case, I said, India is a very poor country. We have to make it economically stronger. And we should make the words, and I actually wrote those days, the word made in India should be something we should all be very proud of, because the culture should be also very strong and not just economically developed. So that's how, I wrote that. I did my management studies, joined Tata's. Then Tata was a very big company, Tata Motors. So I told my boss that it's too large a company. I would then leave and join Eicher. And in my interview with Eicher chairman, I told him, sir, I'll work with you for 10 years. And after that, I'll set up a think tank and a consulting company that would help Indian industry to transform. So many years later, after I did many things in Eicher, including heading operations, the last part, when the time came, then Eicher said to me, why don't you make it a subsidiary of Eicher? That's how Eicher Consulting was born, with a vision statement written by the 18-year-old, now at the age of 35. Eicher Consultancy vision statement is India's economic development without spiritual impoverishment. And soon after that, we discovered Indo-Asian and all of you, Vimal.
Yes.
So,
exactly. I think, and I must say that I was just starting in my professional career, and getting that kind of vision and input from you was the start of my transformational journey, I must say. But Anil, coming back to your story, starting from Tata's, then getting into consulting, then starting Soil, which is now an entrepreneurial journey, but also very closely tied in. At each of these major transitions between these crossroads, this way or this way, what inspired you? What took you in to say, okay, enough of consulting, now I need to start with soil?
Uh,
Mhm.
I've always said to myself that the vision remains the same, but the platform is different. So the reason I said that my time in Aisha Consultancy, even when we created the company, the day we created the company, I told the board I will be the founder and CEO for 10 years. After that, I will step down and I will move on to the next thing. And they said, what would that be? I said, I will let you know at the right time. So exactly after 10 years, 31st of March, Aisha Consultancy finished 10 years on 2001. 1st April, I moved off. And
Okay.
it was clear to me that in 2001 that I am being inspired to answer one particular question, which was becoming increasingly important in my heart. How do you help people and organizations to realize their full potential? Because in Aisha Consultancy, we worked a lot with companies, and this idea was always at the back of my mind that if you can help people to realize full potential, then this economic development will truly become sustainable. So I said, around this question, let me create a whole organization around it. And that's how I Grow Talent was born. And, many amazing things happened out of that. And when I found Grow Talent, I had said to myself that we would enter the field of education. So that was at the very founding of Grow Talent. We had said that as soon as we can get the capacity to enter education, we will do that, because that's something which is to build this realizing the potential question
Uh-huh.
can be supported with this notion that if you have the right quality of education, then you can do that. And I can talk about it later if you like, but that's how it was always planned. So then when my time came in Grow Talent, that okay, the consulting in Grow Talent part had to be now transformed
Uh-huh.
into something more sustainable. So therefore, from consulting, we transformed ourselves from a pure consulting company doing some education to doing now a lot of education with some consulting. So that's how.
Very interesting. Anil, one question which comes to my mind, you started the School for Inspired Leadership, but isn't inspiring others a natural part of leadership? Is it do you feel the notion of inspiration is something which can be acquired? What is the connect between inspiration and leadership?
Yeah, I think this is many people need to understand this, that the biggest lie on leadership is that you lead others. You by mistake muted me, but that's
Oh,
okay. That doesn't matter. So this is what it is, that you see, no one leads anybody, Vimal. You only lead yourself. See, what does a leader do? You first lead your own body and the five senses, the way you listen, the way you observe, the way you communicate through touch, the way you build vitality in your body, in the way you lead your taste and smell function. So leadership of the body is the first aspect. Without that, you can't do anything else. If you don't have physical well-being, you can't do anything else. But that also means the quality of your perceptual intelligence, because the power of observation and listening defines what you are paying attention to. In this moment, I need to pay attention to not just the question you are asking, but what you are implying by your question. So I have to be very clear by observing you, even though we are on video, to understand what would be of service to you and to your group of friends. The second part is, how do you lead your communication process? You see, communication comes from your breath. When you're breathing in, you are absorbing what's happening around you. When you are breathing out, you are responding to the stimuli you receive through breathing in. And I don't know if people are aware of this, but in our spiritual tradition in this country, we believe that you have many lives. And some of the tendencies with which you respond to situations you bring from your past lives. And therefore, you have to be very careful that in a particular situation, if you react based on your some tendencies that you may be carrying, those are the biases that you have. And if you react to a situation without being really aware of what's going on inside you, you may many times may take poor decisions or spoil your relationship with others, because you are responding in a way which is not fully who you are. Response means you take full responsibility, and it is not reacting, which means you are allowing biases to impact you. So that's the leadership of communication. Then how do you lead your emotional self? How do you sort of generate positive emotions in the way you build trust with others? Then how do you lead your intellectual self, which means the quality of your own thinking process? And finally, how are you led by your own life-giving force inside, which is your ever-present witness, which is the silence inside you, which if you care to pay attention, will always make you grounded, give you the inner happiness, and will be the source of all other form of learning inside you, because that is where the learning comes from. So I think leadership is not about leading others. People may choose to go along with you because you are leading yourself in a particular way. They may choose to walk along with you, but never fool yourself. They are not following you. They are following what you stand for. That's what I tell my students. If there is a purpose in your life that you are inspired by, and that is bringing out the best in you, others will see that and become your fellow travelers, but they are not following you. They are following the purpose you stand for. I never fooled myself that in Aisha or Aisha Consulting and all these institutions I have built, that they were following me. No, it's not about Anil Sachdev. It's the cause we stand for. So if the cause is great, you become a leader which is far greater than what you ever were. So that's what this is about.
So, Anil, that's an interesting point. How does one begin to discover one's purpose? You know, you discovered it at the age of 18, as you mentioned. But different members on this call. How should we begin to look at this, and how should we uh, uh, explore this further?
So Vimal, there are three things that you need to pay attention to, which is, first of all, pay attention to observing yourself. When are you at your happiest best? When you do certain work and you are at your happiest best. For a young person, the person is sketching, giving a lot of happiness. Person enjoys music, lot of happiness. Person enjoys rhythm and dance. Person enjoys learning from nature, is attracted to working with animals and plants. It does, or a person is fascinated by numbers. So, when you do something that gives you happiness that lasts for a long time, there's a difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure is a momentary happiness, but the genuine happiness lasts for a longer time. So if you do something which gives you longer stage happiness, that means there is guidance available to you on what are you doing today and what are your own strengths and gifts that you are exploring at that time. Because at your happiest best, always your natural talent will emerge. So pay close attention to that. For example, women, in observing you very closely over the years, I noticed that you are very fond of networking, being with people, going to public platforms, enjoying that. And also along with that, if there is a larger purpose, when you were working, for example, for the industry, not just for your own company, or at the global level when you were involved in some initiative, they were bringing out the best in you because you enjoy talking to people, you enjoy interaction, you enjoy speaking in public, and these are your strengths. But along with that, there is a sense of purpose behind you, that I'm contributing to the industry at large, and that cause in your heart then makes you perform the best. But your strength is of networking and of really sort of maintaining those relationships, and then also you enjoy public speaking and things like that. So I think these are some natural gifts that you have. And so people have to pay attention, to at a young age, you have to pay attention to what really brings out the best in you and what emerges. So that's the first point. Then second, as you get older, you have to ask yourself that question: what really is going to give me more durable happiness? I think the earlier we realize that it's not the things that give us happiness, but it is what the intangibles that are cause of happiness. Of course, it's very natural. Everybody first wants to be financially secure. They want to earn enough money. They want to earn enough recognition for what they have done. But there's a wonderful woman who wrote this book, Your Money or Your Life.
Mhm.
That person said at a young age, you should define how much is enough for you. And she said, okay, you write how much is enough. But when you achieve that, do not make that a moving target. The day you achieve that, from that moment onward, your life should be dedicated to others' welfare and others' well-being. It should no longer be about you, you
Very
know.
interesting. Very powerful.
So, yeah, because, for example, in my case, I think when I was in my 40s, I had already earned enough to make us comfortable. We had built our house. There was enough talent to say we will be able to manage enough money for our daily needs. And there is enough to get the children educated in a reasonable school. So then it was never about what will we do. For example, when I sold our consulting business to Manpower Group, and that night, I and my wife received a huge amount of millions of dollars into our bank account. And, we were actually very scared that night. We said, we have never seen this money. So, what we did? First thing in the morning, we allocated the first charge goes to sharing it with our siblings and to Chinmaya Mission. First charge to the community. Then we said this small savings we need for our old age, for our medical care, and this other is required for our children's weddings, etc. And the remaining we are giving to now creating the School of Inspired Leadership. So all the money was put into creating soil, and we were left with no money after that. And that's exactly what, and we were both feeling so liberated. We said we don't, because money is not the end goal. Money is required to build something. So like we built soil, and now it's second campus in Manesar. And my son was asking me, because he's much younger than me. So he was asking, so you're building all these assets, now about 100 crores of these assets. Now what will you do with these assets? I said, these assets are meant for the community. I don't require any use. I don't need to. I'm the majority shareholder of this company, but I don't need to take any money out of it because we don't need it. We are living very comfortably in a very beautiful house, and we don't need anything for yourself. So you really, I think,
Very
have to
true.
understand that money is grossly overrated in life. And, people have to understand that money is okay till you have a reasonable amount. After that, it actually is a source of the biggest problem. So you must be very clear on how will you put your money to use if you're fortunate to earn it. And that's something that I think is very, very important to do.
Very interesting, Anil. I remember in one of the sessions as part of transformational leadership, that I had the privilege of attending with you. You had talked about an inner journey which was trying to bring out your fears and conquering your fears, and you were connecting it to leadership. Can you bring that out again? Because, of course, by nature, we are all fearful of something. And, so what is the
Yeah.
connection between fear and leadership, and also how do we overcome that?
You see, fear destroys many things in your life. Fear destroys your physical well-being because it actually has a profound impact on your health. And when you carry fear in your heart for long, it becomes cancer. There is enough research to show that. Yeah, so, or many other disorders, including, of course, mental disorders. But I think the reason fear happens is we are conditioned by fear. Of course, ultimately, everybody has got the fear of death, which is the ultimate fear, which everybody, like in this COVID crisis, there's raw fear in so many people's hearts that, what will happen to me or my parents or my near and dear ones or my children, for example. But I think there are other fears which we as parents put into our children at a young age. As you have heard me say earlier, people, when you start talking about fears, when we start with people in their, for example, research shows that you start with people in the 80s, very small percentage are creative. 70s, it's the same. 60s is the same. 50s is the same. 40s is the same. 30s is the same. 20s is the same. At age 15, there are more creative people. At age 10, many more. And at age 5, all children are creative. That means we do something systematically to our children between 5 to 15 to destroy their creativity. And that's what we call parenting. We call it upbringing. We also call it teaching and education. So our teachers and parents and the community. That's what we do. We systematically, without realizing it, we put those fears into our children. What are the fears? So there are several fears, and you can read about it online. There's enough written online, but let me simplify it for all of us. I think one of the biggest fears is the fear of failure itself. That what if I don't succeed? And that's what happens to many people for example, when they go write an exam. There are many students who freeze and are unable to perform well because the thought is bothering them. What if I don't get the grades of my choice? And instead of focusing on the question in hand, they are more worried about, what if they don't get the marks? What if they do not get into a next education of the right choice, and so on and so forth. The second is, this is the biggest fear, and which we parents are very guilty on creating this in our children, that we have a habit of comparing children with other children. And, this is very unfortunate, because when you try to compare, because your child may be very good in music, the other child may be excelling in academics. It doesn't matter. The gift of music sometimes is more divine than just getting 99% marks in high school. So if your daughter is extremely good in something, you have to honor that part rather than worry about what she does not have. So parents, unfortunately, want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to have the cake and eat it too, which means they want the child to be excellent in everything. That's impossible. Nobody is excellent in everything. So when you tend to compare kids with each other, that builds that what we call the allergy to criticism. And that all their life, then they begin to get thinking about what will others say? What will my parents say? What will my family say? What will my friends say? What will the community say? And this obsession with other people's opinion about yourself, rather than focusing on what is the right thing for you to do, is something which prevents you from trying many new things. So, in life, it's not the mistakes that you make that cause you problems. It's the decisions that you don't make that cause you problems. The,
That's interesting.
the opportunities that you have let go because what will others say? It happens to many women when they become homemakers, that they don't explore their own full potential because it's all about saying, oh, I have family responsibility. What will my in-laws say? What will my husband say? What will my parents say? And of course, now things are changing a lot because the young women are asserting themselves and saying, you also have to think about what do I say. And so it is a collective rather than worry about what will people say. It's exploring yourself. The third dimension is putting overemphasis on things which are more structured and more finite, like putting too much focus on science and mathematics or even commerce in the recent time. We tell our kids in India, it's very unfortunate that we say that only the kid who's not smart enough should get into humanities. I mean, it's an absurd statement to make. Whereas literature, philosophy, sociology, anthropology, music, linguistics, these are fascinating fields. And I think we need to encourage our children some of our best minds must go into liberal arts, as we call it now, or the humanities, as we have called it traditionally. Because we require some of the best mind, because what that does is that generates holistic thinking rather than just analytical thinking. And when you get too used to exact things and structure, then you are leaving a lot of creativity out. So there are so many examples of people who are made to think. And mind you, the typical success, like many people who go to IIT and IIMs and are supposed to be the smartest, I have worked with many people who are first rankers in these institutes. I'm sorry to say some of them are not at all creative. And many of them are not good leaders, even though they have got the toppers. I had a colleague who worked with me, I don't want to take his name, who got 800 out of 800 in GMAT. That means he was amongst the three human beings, along with Robert McNamara of the World Bank and one more person. He was the third person on planet Earth to get 800 at that time. But the man did not go beyond what we called in our consulting business engagement manager. Because in front of clients, he was not very good. He was a bit of an introvert. He could not build that rapport. He could not develop business. So, a lot of relationships in life are defined by who you are in terms of your energy and how you make others feel. It's not about just being very smart in one way. So, that what we call allergy to ambiguity should not be there. The fourth aspect is, especially in India and middle class families, we keep telling our children, you don't have enough. Oh, we don't have enough. How can you dare to think like that? How can you want to become like a Steve Jobs? A child is dreaming like that. And so we keep reminding them of our own limited resources. And our parents, sometimes we make a mistake of telling our younger ones that they don't have enough. This enough has to be in the heart. It's not just to be defined in terms of the only money. So there are people, and we have amazing stories of people like Mahendra Singh Dhoni and others who didn't have so-called enough, but had talent. and look at what they have created by way of resources for others. So there are many such dimensions. The last point I want to make here is the fear we have of protecting our children too much, not allowing them to go for excursions, trips, going out, learning from nature, diving into the river, jumping off the cliff, going into the sea, and doing wonderful things that they need to do to learn from nature, because nature is a source of creativity. And a lot of us are guilty of not spending enough time in the outdoors. And I want to end this with only saying one thing: you can improve creativity at any age in your life. And so if you have some of these fears inside you, this is the time to claim yourself and get rid of the fear. And there are methods to overcome each one of these fears, and find like-minded people with whom you can do some new crazy things, which will make you develop and get rid of the fears so that you can discover your creative self.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you mentioned two names just now, Mahendra Singh Dhoni and Steve Jobs. And like this, there are different leaders who've really done well and created a lot of value. There are leaders in business, there are leaders at home. Is there a common thread between leadership, these leaders? What is your take on this? And are there differentiators?
Yeah.
How do you lead the army? How do you lead business? How do you lead a cricket team?
The context defines the leader within you, so the context is very important. But just to generalize the whole thing, I love the concept of ikigai of Japan, which you must all be familiar with. Ikigai, which is, on one hand, what are you good at? On the other hand, what are you passionate about? Third, what does the world require? And fourth, what is the world willing to pay for? Which means, how can you make sure that you have an economic life also based on your talent, and it's not just altruistic only? So I think when everything comes together like that, you discover your sweet spot, which is really the highest potential in you, because then you are not only doing something which you love, but also, and you are passionate about, but you are good at, and also what the others require. So that everything comes together. Yes.
Um, the next question, which interestingly one of the attendees has asked, Poonam asks, how much of change can be triggered through training programs? I mean, these are people who are in their professional careers. Do trainings trigger change?
No, I think training in a classroom or on the digital channel, as we are discovering it now, is only a small part of the whole transformation process. What is important is that the biggest training or learning experience is through experience itself, to design experience for people. That means very consciously choose assignments for people, rotate people in different projects, assignments, jobs. Consciously, so every year in an organization, you have a portfolio of the important projects you are going to do to improve the company. And then on the other hand, you have a lot of people with potential whom you want to develop. So consciously matching the portfolio of talent with the portfolio of new things you are trying to do gives people the experience. And, for example, in my case, I remember when I was in telco as a very young man, 20 and a half, when I did my MBA, my boss, V.S. Mahesh, whom we honor by giving an award, the late V.S. Mahesh, this man at a very young age told me, Anil, now you will lead the campus recruitment process for graduate engineers. So at 21, I went to IIT Madras to interview engineers. And he trusted me to do that. At 22, he told me, you will be head of HR and manpower development for the Engineering Research Center and the Machine Tool Division with 4,000 people. And Mr. Gurudat I was working with was using me for a change process in R&D. At 22, I was having an office next to the director R&D, pretty large office. And, he was giving more respect to me for interviewing deputy director for R&D. I was part of the interview panel at 22. And he would take my advice on what are the structural changes to be done in R&D. People will still remember that. So how, example, we brought about a merger between engine design and engine testing because there was always a conflict. And I took the two leaders in conflict with me to attend a creativity workshop for 10 days, which is Dr. Khandwala's workshop. And during those 10 days, we three worked together to resolve the conflict. At the end of 10 days, we came back with a new designed organization. So these are all experiences. In Aisha, similarly, Vikram Lal told me, Anil, you are very good in HR. Now you must feel business. So go and run the plant at Faridabad. So 3.5 years at age 27, I was in charge of 1,000 people running the plant. I never handled a plant or operations or production in my life. But that's what leaders do. They pick up people with potential and give them different experience. So, and then there is the mentorship and coaching, investing time and dialogue with people from whom you can learn. And last part is, very consciously well-designed classroom or digital learning. So that's probably the smallest part of your learning process. The biggest is designing the right experience for you.
Wonderful. I heard another blog, Anil, in which you were speaking of this beautiful concept of being the best version of yourself. Can you elaborate on that? I thought it was very, very, very powerful. How
and I invite,
best version? Yeah.
And I invite all your friends in this group to join us every Thursday on our YouTube channel, the Soil Institute of Management YouTube channel. I interview some significant leaders every Thursday. Yesterday, I was on the last Thursday, day before, I was interviewing Ravi Venkateshan, who is one of India's most wonderful, amazing leaders, who's currently heading a major assignment in UNICEF. So in this best version of yourself, the idea is to learn from these leaders and then to explore within you what is preventing you to become the best version of yourself. Why are you killing yourself by living in the past and having regrets and guilt and saying, I wish I had done something? Why don't you learn to live in the present and without having also anxiety for the future, so that you can pay attention to what I said earlier, your own strengths. So these conversations that I have every Thursday with leaders to ask, when were they at their happiest best? What did they discover about themselves? How are they leveraging that now? What have they learned from their failure stories? Because all of us have failures, including in my life. I faced some significant failures. And so how do you learn out of that? So that you can learn from that. So currently what we are experiencing in our school and most entrepreneurs are facing today, we don't have enough cash. So how do you manage today's situation? How do you keep your people with you fully engaged, even when you don't have enough? So there are all kinds of issues there. So the question is, in the midst of all that, how do you lead your own self in a way that you become better every day? If I do not know whether you were with us that time when we met His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Yes, I was.
I know in one workshop you were there. There was another time in 2001 when we had a large group that went and had a dialogue with him.
And I was part of that also.
Yeah, you were part of that also. That inner wealth and outer wealth
Yes.
conversation. You remember His Holiness told us that every day when you get up, you ask how you can become better that day. And at the end of the day, ask yourself what difference I made to the world today. And he said, if you even in a little bit become a better version of yourself every day, he didn't use the word better version, but he said, if you become a better person every day, then you create inner wealth. And he told us, always be satisfied with the amount of inner wealth you have. But he also said, as a result of this, you will gain something in the outer world. The world will give back to you. Whatever it gives back to you is outer wealth. Always be satisfied with what you get, because that is what you deserve. And so, and always try to become more deserving by becoming a better person every day. So, that's what he guided us. And I think that has been profound and it's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anil, I have a very provocative question also, if I may.
Sure.
Quote it exactly. How do we reverse the structural genocide of the young who are led by parental aspirations? You talked about, the creativity structure can kill. How do we reorient?
Yeah, it's a powerful question, because, you must have the courage to speak up. You have to have the courage to speak up. You have to have the courage to say that I'm going to have a conversation with my parents about how I feel, even though they may be upset about it. I must make it clear to them as to how their methods are actually having the reverse impact on me, because most parents use those strong methods hoping to improve their children. But many of them are not well trained themselves, so they don't realize that actually they are damaging the children rather than improving them.
Mhm.
So at some stage, the child has to speak up. And if you don't have the guts to speak up, you have to take the help of others in the family. Sometimes grandparents come into rescue. Sometimes grandparents can correct the children, because grandparents are the best friend of grandchildren, because both of them have a common enemy.
Yeah.
That's right.
That is,
So sometimes you can take the grandparents help or another elder in the family, or you can take the help of a friend. So ask yourself, whom will my parents trust the most, and can I convey the impact my parents are having on me through them? If you are not able to have that relationship yet to speak up, I think this is because if you don't if you give up even without trying, initially they may be angry with you, initially they may upset you more, but then gradually they'll get the answer that my child, this is not working.
yeah.
So we also have a responsibility. Rather than becoming victims, we have to feel more empowered.
More power, yes. Very well said. Anil, the next question is actually something that was coming from me. Uh, in another time, I've heard you speak of not having regrets, that living a wholesome life. But of course, each one of us would possibly have some feeling, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have done that. How does one overcome that? You know, Along the way, we at the crossroads we take some decisions which could have gone this way or this way. We took a wrong turn, let's say. How does one overcome that?
One, if you are feeling regretful because you did not do something or you did something which was incorrect in the past and that impacted some people, it's never too late for asking for forgiveness. Only the courageous ask for forgiveness. And you don't become small because you are asking for forgiveness. In fact, you become truly great by saying you're sorry. If you can't express it eye to eye, face to face, you can write and say, I'm sorry. But I think it's important to move on and to get rid of the baggage of the past rather than carry the regrets in your life. And the second part is that what you can't undo what has happened in the past. The past is history. So how about learning from the past? And if you have a practice, therefore, I encourage everybody who works with us, and I have a practice of doing it myself, take out time for regular introspection and write down what are you learning from what you have done in the recent past. So if the life is a lifelong journey, for example, in the last few months, I'm consciously paying more attention to how to learn new digital skills. For example, I was one of the earliest in our campus to adopt to teaching digitally and to learn how to do that and to master, for example, even in the Zoom, all the facilities on how to do that, right? Or even other platforms. So I think because you are continuously trying to learn and you have a growth mindset, and if you are every day like a child having the curiosity to learn, then you are always focusing on the present. You are not living in the past and you are not having regrets because you are moving on. And one last thing about that is that always have a circle of friends or mentors or family with whom you can speak up. I speak a lot to my wife on things that are bothering me. I also sometimes speak to my siblings. I also have some close friends and some mentors in life that I can go and speak to. My spiritual teacher is my mentor. So there are things which bother you. Create that community around you with whom you can clean your heart, just like the computer requires housekeeping, cleaning and deleting all old files. Our homes and cupboards require housekeeping, which many of us are discovering in the COVID time. I think our heart requires housekeeping and cleaning. So there has to be a regular cleaning of the heart. And don't be afraid to cry, because many, especially to the men in this group, it's okay for men also to cry. It's okay that let your emotions come out, and then let there be a catharsis. Don't keep it closely to your heart, all your hurts and regrets and the guilts that you carry.
True.
Come out with it so that you can move on in life.
Interesting. Anil, you mentioned Zoom in between, the notion of training online and digital training, etc. In your opinion, the way, the COVID-19 has impacted everyone's lives and business and work, do you think some of this change is permanent? Have you thought about how leadership is going to evolve in the next 10 years, say, when we're going more digital and more online and remote? It's another thing to sit in your presence and then listen to your stories.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
how does this work?
You know, Priya Somaya is in the group right now in participants. I just noticed. So, hi, Priya. Priya will remember the work we did with Unilevers. And one of the people that we worked with at that time, and we also, assisted him and his team when he was a senior leader in Unilever in India. Now, Nitin Paranspe is the global president of Unilever. And next Thursday, I'm interviewing him. So, please do join me. Nitin was saying something quite remarkable yesterday that he came to meet his wife and daughter from Unilever in London, and then the COVID crisis began. So last 3.5 months he's here. He's the global president running one of the biggest companies in the world, and he said that it's an eye opener for him that without ever going to office for 3.5 months, some of the best work has happened in Unilever. And because not only have they produced enough and supplied to their customers and consumers, they have made sure that everybody in their supply chain has enough cash. They said our responsibility is not only to pay our own employees, but to make sure all our suppliers and everybody in the supply chain is taken care of, including our sellers and distributors. So to manage that on a global basis is a fascinating achievement. And he said that this is a learning that is happening, that not only are you adopting technology at super speed, you are actually learning that working from home perhaps is a far better sort of way of working rather than working in a traditional way, from the office. So people are going to do that. There are three other things people are learning. I think, therefore, as time is running out, we will come to the understanding of what leaders are discovering, which they are all talking about: learning agility. This research on learning agility started in 2011. But now it has become almost an urgent need, and the World Economic Forum, in a response to crisis, has talked about how it is the most critical thing leaders need to imbibe in their hearts. And for everybody, 6 dimensions. First, as Swami Chinmayananda always told us, or His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, leader, know yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you truly good at and what you are not good at? Don't try to confuse yourself between what you would like to be good at as your strength. Be very clear. Second, pay close attention to the way you source childlike curiosity, because if you are not curious enough, unless you are a curious mind, so every day you should be behaving like what we in the spiritual discipline call the unschooled mind, which means with a fresh thinking every day. Every day is an opportunity to do something new. So have that curiosity. Third, have the mental agility to think with the whole mind, not just analytical mind, the whole mind, creative mind, intuitive mind. Then have the people agility. Deliberately hang around with people who are not like you. Learn from people from other generation. For a young person who's avoiding meeting very old people, do that. For the old people, hang around with young people. Then people from different backgrounds. This is the time to get to discover who's the person who guards your security gate, and get to discover that person. Get to discover the person who works in your house. What is she good at? People who are not like you, because if you have people agility, you will excel. Then pay attention to how adaptable you are. Are you thinking of alternate ways of doing things? Adaptable. Finally, pay close attention to the way you are actually enabling things to happen in small ways every day, rather than getting frozen and saying, what can I do? That's something very, very important.
Anil, I have a very interesting question from a young entrepreneur who's just started his own business. So, and it's a very interesting question. In these pandemic times when businesses hit, how can entrepreneurs and leaders enhance or improve the processes to sustain and grow their business? Knowing that all the challenges of entrepreneurship and startups are anyway there.
You see, for making process upgradation, I love the word I learned from the Japanese, which is called process renovation. Whenever you design a process, define the life of that process and systematically renovate. So say this is a new process, the life will be 2 years or 3 years. And make sure you improve it. So in the short period of time, this is a great time to see greenfield thinking. That means even in an established company, you have to think like with that growth mindset to say, if we were to set up this organization all over again, how would we do it differently? What processes will we run? What are the resources we will deploy? And do some fresh thinking on that rather than be vested in the past. So when you do that and have process renovation mindset, I think you can do a lot in improving your processes and making them more responsive. And always have the design thinking mindset. What is the design thinking mindset? Which is observe people in their natural habitat. For example, if it's an employee process, observe them in their natural habitat. How are they working from home? How are they interacting with the community? With customers, how are they actually experiencing your product today in this current environment? Pay attention to that. Watch them through video, watch them through photographs, watch them through language. That's the first step. And the second is, once you have understood what is, then you can ask yourself with that curiosity of the child, what if? Let the creative juices flowing. And then work with your customers or your employees or your colleagues. And if it's a family, with your family members to say, what will create a wow? And once you do all that, then the last part is you take half-baked ideas. In design thinking, we say take prototypes, half-baked ideas, go back to the concerned stakeholder. With their help, develop a solution that will create maximum value. So when you follow these 4 steps, observing with mindfulness, listening with mindfulness, empathizing with people's needs, sourcing creativity, then out of that taking ideas which you can then use with the power of the stakeholders and their inputs, doing experimentation, prototyping, and then scaling up the solution with their help. So when you follow these 5 processes, so if you initially are sourcing desirability, then you are looking at feasibility, and finally you are through scalability looking at viability. So when the 3 in the Venn diagram of design come together, then process improvement will take. So
Very
focus on
well.
experience, not on the product. Hanji. So
Excellent.
last question, that I must exit because we have to exit 5 minutes
Yes.
before time
So
today.
I
Yeah.
will take the liberty of asking the last question. And actually, it's 2 small questions. One, you've done so much, created so much of value in our society today. What next? And the other part is any lasting message that you want to leave, especially for the younger generation which is on the call today.
Yeah. For the younger generation, look yourself in the mirror and say, wow, what a nice person. Love yourself. Love the strengths you have. Love your dreams. Because it starts with loving yourself and having that belief that you are, and believe me, you have unlimited potential. You have that life-giving force, so please trust your own potential. You have all the power within you. You have that. And so that's what I would like to leave the younger people with. And for me personally, I feel like a child in a candy shop. I mean, a lot of my time these days goes into how can I serve others. A third of my time goes into doing work purely for not for profit and to serving organizations. A third of my time goes to work with young students and teaching them, and I hang around a lot with them because that's our future. And then the 1/3 of my life is meant also for still people in industry and those roles that industry continuously still makes demands on me to contribute to their effectiveness, which I continue to do. And I think I will continue to do as over time my work for purely for not for profit has kept on increasing, and over a period of time that may become even more and more. And in that part of that is also my quiet time that I spend for myself, which is with Chinmaya Mission, my own sadhana, my own spiritual experience.
Wonderful.
So that's the last one.
Excellent. Thank you
So
so
thanks
much.
a lot. Thank you
Really
very much,
appreciate.
Vimal. Enjoyed listening to you and
Yes,
enjoyed being with all the 24 people in the list. So thank you very much. And
yes.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks for your time, and thank you very much for all who attended this session. Of course, in the video which I'll send to you, I'll add the links to Anil's video blogs and the soil link.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
Anil.
very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.